Hey everybody, it's Eric from epautos.com, your libertarian car guy. This week I'm driving the 25 Kia Telluride, and one of the nice things about the Telluride is that it is one of the few vehicles of its type, that being a mid-sized crossover, that still comes standard with a V6. A lot of the models in this class don't even offer a 6-cylinder engine anymore, such as the Toyota Grand Highlander. And of course, if you follow me or read my stuff or listen to me rant, you'll know why. It has everything to do with compliance pressures, and so the question may arise in your head, well, how come Kia/Hyundai can continue to offer the V6? Well, you know, it's because this model came out in 2020, so it's one of the older models in the segment, hasn't been updated recently. And I fear that come 2026, when they do update it, that they're probably going to do something like everybody else has done just about, and put a turbo hybrid 4-cylinder in it. And again, not because that's what the market is craving, but it's because of what the government is demanding in terms of regulatory compliance costs. These things have nothing to do with saving fuel or saving money. They've got everything to do with saving hassle with the federal government and its various requirements pertaining to things like gas mileage and also emissions of the gas, carbon dioxide, that has nothing to do with air pollution. You know, I know I beat this horse a lot, but I think it's important because I think it's important that people understand the truth and the facts, kind of like during the pandemic, that they understand that wearing a mask doesn't do a thing to stop the spread, and that the vaccines that they were pushing on people were nothing of the kind because they didn't confer immunity on anybody. So they were neither effective nor safe. This is something we really need to hammer into people's heads so that this sort of stuff just stops. The other thing I wanted to mention, this is more of a general thing, not really having to do with the Telluride as such. I panned on the instrument cluster, and it's not a cluster any longer. It is a continuous LCD flat screen, and this is all the rage now. It's all the vogue, and it is chiefly because it's less expensive for the manufacturers to put these screens in. You know, it's just a simple sheet of plastic and some transistors, kind of like the flat screen that you buy at Walmart. You notice that flat screen TVs are really cheap now. You can pick up a big one for $300. Remember when they were super expensive? Well, the cost, and it's one of the few things that's gotten less expensive, because this sort of this stuff, these electronics are the one thing that's getting cheaper for people to buy, cheaper to manufacture. It also helps the manufacturers reduce manufacturing costs by eliminating a lot of the physical controls that they used to have to plumb into a vehicle. You know, you put everything on the touchscreen and it's all controlled electronically. Now, a couple of issues with it. You know, some people, and I was talking about this today on a radio show, which I'll have up on the site later this week, or by the weekend at any rate, feel that they are suffering negative effects from emanations coming out of the LCD screens, things having to do with EMFs and so on. I don't know about that, but what I do know is that when this screen stops working, you know, people should really think about this. All right, so here's this flat screen. When this thing stops working, when the vehicle's out of warranty, you know, 8, 9, 10 years from now, what are you going to do? Think about how all of the, or most of the secondary controls, things like air conditioning, not in this particular case, this Kia has secondary air conditioning controls, but the audio system and a lot of the other controls, the only way to control them is through these LCD touchscreen interfaces. So if the thing goes dark, it glitches, it doesn't work any longer, well, it's not just that you don't have the cool looking screen to look at any longer, you don't have any way to control those functions any longer. So you basically are going to be in the position of having to get a replacement touchscreen. And what if there is no replacement? Very possible. You know, it's not like in the past when you could get parts for just about any mass-produced vehicle for 30 years or longer without much difficulty. The market has gotten much more bracketed or segmented or whatever the word is, and instead of building hundreds of thousands of a particular model, they might only build 20 or 30,000 annually, and then they'll significantly change that vehicle at most 4 years after it was introduced. And so after that point, you know, the parts that were made for the original, they get scarcer, they get harder to find. Then you got a real problem. You know, in a way, it's kind of like the problem that people who have electric vehicles have with regard to the batteries. You know, when the battery starts to lose its capacity to hold a charge or discharges rapidly, you basically have a useless vehicle unless you want to go out and spend a lot of money on a new battery pack. And it may be the case in the future that, you know, if you want to keep your otherwise operational vehicle running, you're going to have to spend a lot of money on one of these touchscreens, and if it's not available, then you're really going to be out of luck. And that's one of the reasons why I'm just not a big fan of these things. And that's all I've got on that. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about it. More over at epautos.com, the web's best libertarian gearhead site. Thanks as always for listening, and we'll have more for you again soon.